The Yuba City Five were five young men from Yuba City, California, with mild psychiatric conditions, who attended a college basketball game at California State University, Chico, on the night of February 24th, 1978. Four of them, Bill Starling, 29, Jack Huett, 24, Ted Weiher, 32, and Jack Madruga, 30, were later found dead. The fifth, Gary Mathias, 25, has never been found. While he was stationed in West Germany as part of his United States Army service in the early 1970s, Gary Mathias, a native of Yuba City, California, developed drug problems. This eventually led to him being diagnosed with schizophrenia and being psychiatrically discharged. Mathias returned to his parents' home in Yuba City and began treatment at a local mental hospital. Mathias supplemented his Army disability pay by working in his stepfather's gardening business. Off the job, outside of his family, he was close friends with Starling and Huett, who were slightly older men who also had slight intellectual disabilities, and Weiher and Madruga, who were informally considered slow learners. Weiher and Madruga were also Army veterans. The men lived in Yuba City and nearby Marysville. Like Mathias, each man lived with his parents, all of whom referred to them collectively as the boys. The five men's favorite leisure activity was sports. Their families said that when they got together, it was usually to play a game or to watch one. They played basketball together on a team called the Gateway Gators. This team was supported by a local program for people with mental disabilities. On February 25th, the Gators were due to play their first game in a week-long tournament, sponsored by the Special Olympics, for which the winners would get a free week in Los Angeles. The five men had prepared the night before, some even laying out their uniforms and asking their parents to wake them up on time. They decided to drive to Chico that night to cheer on the UC Davis basketball team in an away game against Chico State. Madruga, the only member of the group besides Mathias who had a driver's license, drove the group 50 miles north to Chico in his turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego. The men wore only light coats against the cool temperatures in the upper Sacramento Valley at night that time of year. After the Davis team won the game, the group got back into Madruga's car and drove a short distance from the Chico State campus to Bear's Market in downtown Chico. There they bought snacks along with sodas and cartons of milk to drink. It was shortly before the store's 10 p.m. closing time. The clerk remembered the men because she was annoyed that such a large group had come in and delayed her from beginning the process of closing the store for the night. None of the men were seen alive again after that point. At their homes, some of their parents stayed up to make sure they returned. When morning came and they had not, the police were notified. Police in Butte and Yuba counties began searching along the route the men took to Chico. They found no sign of them, but a few days later, a plumeless National Forest ranger told investigators that he had seen the Montego parked along Orville-Quincy Road in the forest on February 25th. They followed his directions and eventually saw the car stuck in the snow. Inside the car was evidence suggesting the men had been inside it between when they were last seen and when it was abandoned. The wrappers and empty cartons and cans they had purchased in Chico were present, along with programs from the basketball game they had watched and a neatly folded map of California. However, the discovery of the car raised more questions than it had answered. One question was its location, 70 miles from Chico, far off any direct route to Yuba City or Marysville. None of the men's families could speculate as to why they might have driven up a long and winding dirt road on a winter night deep into a high-elevation remote forest, without any extra clothing on the night before a basketball game they had been discussing excitedly for several weeks. Madruga's parents said he did not like the cold weather and had never been up into the mountains. Starling's father had once taken his son to the area near where the car was found for a fishing weekend, but the younger man had not enjoyed it and remained at home when his father took later trips there. The mystery deepened after police towed the car back to the station for a more thorough examination. The Montego's undercarriage had no dents, gouges, or even mud scrapes, not even on its low-hanging muffler, despite having been driven a long distance up a mountain road with many bumps and ruts. Either the driver had been extremely careful, or it was someone familiar with the road, a familiarity Madruga was not known to have. His family said that Madruga would not have let someone else drive the car. The car was unlocked and had a window rolled down when it was found. His family indicated it was unlike him to leave the car so unsecured. On June 4th, with most of the higher elevation snow melted, a group of motorcyclists went to a trailer maintained by the Forest Service at a campsite off the road about 19.4 miles from where the Montego had been found. The front window of the trailer had been broken. When they opened the door, They were overcome by the odor of what had turned out to be a decaying body inside. It was later identified as Weiher's. Searchers returned to Plumas, following the road between the trailer and the site of the Montego. The next day, they found remains that were later identified as those of Madruga and Sterling on the opposite sides of the road, 11.4 miles from where the car had been. Madruga's body had been partially consumed by scavenging animals. Only bones remained of Sterling, scattered over a small area. Autopsies showed that they both died of hypothermia. Deputies think that one of them may have given in to the need to sleep that comes with the last stages of hypothermia, while the other stayed by his side and died the same way. 2 days later, as part of one of the other search parties, Jack Huett's father found his son's backbone under a manzanita bush 2 miles northeast of the trailer. His shoes and jeans nearby helped identify the body. The next day, a deputy sheriff found a skull downhill from the bush, 300 feet away, confirmed by dental records to have been Huett's. His death, too, was attributed to hypothermia. In an area to the northwest of the trailer, roughly a quarter mile from it, searchers found 3 Forest Service blankets and a rusted flashlight by the road. It could not be determined how long those items had been there. Since Mathias had presumably not taken his medication, pictures of him were distributed to mental institutions all over California. However, no trace of him has ever been found. Weiher's body was on a bed with 8 sheets wrapped around it, including the head. The autopsy showed that he had died of a combination of starvation and hypothermia. Weiher had lost nearly half of his 200 pounds. The growth of his beard suggested he had lived as long as 13 weeks from when he had last shaved. His feet were badly frostbitten, almost gangrenous. On a table next to the bed were some of Weiher's personal belongings, including his wallet with cash, a nickel ring with Ted engraved on it, and a gold necklace he also wore. Also on the table was a gold watch, without its crystal, which Weiher's family said was not his, and a partially melted candle. He was wearing a Weiher shirt and lightweight pants, but his shoes could not be found. Most puzzling to the investigators was how Weiher had come to this fate. No fire had been set in the trailer's fireplace, despite an ample supply of matches and paperback novels to use as kindling. Heavy forestry clothing, which could have kept the men warm, also remained where it had been stored. A dozen sea ration cans from a storage shed outside had been opened and their contents consumed. But a locker in the same shed that held an even greater assortment of dehydrated foods, enough to keep all 5 men fed for a year if that had been necessary, had not even been opened. Similarly, another shed nearby held a butane tank with a valve that, had it been opened, would have fed the trailer's heating system. Weiher's family members said that he lacked common sense because he had mental disabilities. The whereabouts of Gary Mathias remains unknown till date. No one could speculate whether he died like his other 4 friends, or that he was lucky to escape whatever happened to them and wandered away to an unknown place.